Hey, welcome. Okay, so you've decided to get that ceiling fan swapped. Maybe it's not exactly the right look you're going for. Maybe it makes a lot of noise or it wobbles, some of those sort of problems. Either way, you've decided to dive in. Well, there's no reason to be nervous about it. It's a pretty simple procedure. This fan, as a matter of fact, is going to come off fairly quickly and easily. The bigger challenge is getting the new fan put together and installed. But I'm going to walk you through it all, and together we'll be able to get this project finished up. We're going to go up top now. We'll get this one taken care of. The first thing we've done is we've turned off the power, even though it's switch controlled, just to make sure nothing bad happens. All right, from up here, we need to remove 2 of these screws, and then the other 2 we can just pivot the beauty ring and it'll come right down. I'll show you. Sometimes these screws can be pretty tight too, so be prepared to lean into it. But be careful not to strip the screw head. That could turn into a frustrating circumstance. 1 screw. Yeah, I better look, or I may never find it. There it is. Trying to keep track of the screw once I get it out might be the challenge. Okay. Now we'll just loosen the other 2 screws. We don't have to actually remove them. Once they're loosened a little bit, you can pivot this beauty cap, bring it down. Now, just to be safe, I'm going to double check with the volt tick, make sure we don't have any electricity running, so that I don't end up getting a jolt that I wasn't anticipating. Okay, we're going to somewhat gently pull the wires back down, or pull the wires down so we can access them. Got all of our necessary wires there, and it's really just as simple as unscrewing the wire nuts. Safely disconnecting the wires. Now this particular fan design, as do many others, uses a ball and socket type of mount. It's very convenient. It works exceptionally well. All we're going to do is push up, get it out of the clearance in the channel there, separate those 2 ground wires that we're still hugging, set it to the side gently, and then it's possible that your new fan will have the same type of mount. If you look specifically for the exact brand, then you can be assured of that, and chances are you can use the old mount and just leave it in place. For the sake of the demonstration, we'll go ahead and get this one out of the way. But I am going to leave the mounting screws in case they come in handy for the next one. That's the removal process. Now let's go get that other fan back together and get it installed. Okay, so you've got your new fan opened up. You've spread out the parts to make sure everything you need is here. It looks like everything's complete, so we're pretty much ready to prep the fan and then get it put up in its location. Okay, at this point, it's time to go ahead and get the fan prepped and installed. We're going to get the post on it and the beauty cap, and we do that fairly simply. We're going to run the wires up through there. Now, you want the hole in the pole to line up with the hole in the top of the fan, where we can insert this pin. Different fans do this slightly differently, so make sure you read the instructions and get to know how your fan's going to work. Then I'm going to run this cotter pin through the hole in the end of the rod. Theoretically. Oh, you're so stubborn. Got it. I'm just going to spread the tail end of the cotter pin to make sure it holds that pin in place. Then we're going to remove this top bulb by taking out this screw right here. Once this drops down, When you get it loose enough, you'll be able to pull this pin out, and that will allow you to get the ball back off the top. But we've got this little ground wire right here that also has to be removed first. Now these are going to go back on, so pay attention to them and keep track of them. Set that down. We'll remove the ball. Now the beauty ring can go on. Wiggle its way down to the bottom there for now. I'm going to put the ball back on. Just reassembling it in reverse order. Got the grounding wire that goes on here. I've got the pin to reinsert. There are slots that will line up with that, and at that point you can put this locking screw back into position. Make sure it's fairly tight. Now, lifting up the beauty cap enough that you can get to these mounting screws. A little bit of a challenge. We're going to tighten both of these screws to make sure we lock the post in. Okay, once those are good and tight, this cover will go up and attach to the mounting bracket. So I believe at this point, we take a look around, we grab our wire nuts, and we should be ready to go. Now it's time to get up on the ladder. I'm going to double check that the power is not going to light me up. Since the original mounting screws are still in place, we also know that it has a proper kind of fan box in it. It's not just a ceiling light box. It actually has a support bar that goes from joist to joist, so we can just tighten these mounting screws up and go from there. Good. Now we're ready to set the fan in, and basically the ball sits right in this cup once the ground wire is out of the way. You know what? I'm going to bring those wires around to the front for you guys. Make it a little easier to see. It'll also make it easier to work with in general for me. Okay, got our wires there. Now we're just going to set this ball in, like so. Spin it. This particular one has a groove on the back of the ball that lines up with a alignment pin on the mount. So it still has some play, but it doesn't twist. Now, the blue wire on this fan is for the light, while the black wire would be used for the fan itself, for the fan blades. If you had a switch for each, then you would wire the blue and the black separately. In this case, we're going to wire them together and use the pull chains to operate the light and fan independently, so we can just run those two together. I'm actually going to start by tying the two grounds, one for the fan motor and one for the fan bracket, together. I'm not sure who I'm trying to leave some visual for. We'll get those twisted together to make them cooperate. We're going to tie them onto the ground wire, and we are looking to spin this nut until the wires twist. Then we can get that tucked up out of the way if we like. Give us a little more room to work. Now we can tie in the neutral. Twist them together to make them more cooperative. Put on the wire nut and keep turning until the wires turn. Let's see how we're doing here. There we go. So we can be sure they're really locked in there. That also can go back up in the box if you like. Give us more room. Now we're going to tie the blue and the black wires together because of the pull chain operation. The switch will still control the whole assembly, but the pull chains will let us decide if we want the fan on or the light on or both. I'm still, as always, twisting until the wires twist. And we're going to insert those wires as well. Now, as you can see on the mounting bracket, if you can see right there, there's a second hole. It's going to line up with this hole right here. Get that little washer to agree to come out a little bit. Let me get him paying attention. There we go. Oh, almost had him. Come on, little buddy. You know, it's your dream come true. Okay. I've slid that up on this side. Move to the other side and do the same thing. Now, when I pivot this on both sides of the fan, that should line up those holes for these screws right here. Once these screws are in at least a little bit, you can then tighten all of them. These screws have little ridges along the outside edges so that if you had smaller fingers than mine, you might be able to tighten them by hand at least a small amount. Remember, this beauty ring is not holding the weight of the fan, it's just a beauty cap. Do the same thing on the other side. See if I can get it started. So I shift position and drive my camera guys crazy. Get this other screw in here real quick. Once these are in and tight, all that's left is the installation of the light assembly and bulbs and the fan blades. Okay, should be good there. Now, with this in place, we can go back down and get the fan blades ready to install and the light fixture. Okay, these are the brackets that hold the fan blades. They've already got the screws that mount them to the fan motor, but we have to press down these rubber rings, slide the fan blades onto them, and get their screws in place. At this point, you need to decide if you want the white side down or the wood side down. We're going to go with wood side down. These can be tricky, so make sure you don't cross-thread them. And be patient, because sometimes it seems like there's a million screws you're screwing in when you're putting a fan together. It's the most time-consuming part of the process, probably. Now that you've got the fan blades assembled, we're ready to move up to the fan, get those put in place, and then get the light fixture put in place. Okay, as I get up here to the fan, before I can put the blades in place, I need to remove this bracket that was installed to protect the motor during shipping. Most fans come with some sort of device like this that restricts the movement of the fan, just to kind of make sure it's going to survive the process. This one, it looks like, just has the 2 screws. Some of them are much more difficult. As that piece is removed, we can begin assembling the fan blades. Now, if you can see these areas here, every one of those slots and then has 2 screws. It has a small mounting pad that once again helps isolate vibration. We're just going to get those set in, and once they're both set in lightly, then I'll tighten them up, like so, and like so. The vast majority of fans use a system similar to this to mount their blades, so you will see this type of 2-screw mounting system fairly often. Now the fan's going to sit kind of crazy right now because it's only got one blade in it, but that's okay. We're going to get this next one started. And then we'll get the rest of them installed. Now that the blades have been put in place, it's a little time consuming, but be patient, don't rush, and be careful not to cross thread those screws. Now we're going to install the light fixture. We're going to remove these 3 small screws so that it can be put up in place. Now, before we can actually put it up in place, we need to plug in the wires. People who make fans are very fond of rubber bands, so you're going to see that. And my intent was not to rhyme, I'm just gifted that way. Okay, so the white wire is going to plug into the white wire. This is pretty hard to mess up. White to white. We're going to twist it till the slots are lined up and then insert it. And the black to black. Just like that. See, well, in this case it's blue to black, but you've got your hots and your neutrals ran. We're going to tuck the wires up in there and get it set. Now you'll notice a slot on the light fixture right there. That slot is going to go around back where there's a switch for reversing the fan direction. And it's only when you line that slot up that you'll have the clearance you need to get the light fixture up and in place, like so. Well, we may have to mess with these wires just a little bit to get them to cooperate. There it is. We'll get this first screw in place to hold it still while we can line up the other screws. To be perfectly honest, I will have to say that the more expensive your fan, the more convenient their attachment methods for accessories like lights and fan blades. Less expensive fans can be a little more exciting in this area. And by exciting, I mean time consuming. One screw left. And we are almost ready. We'll get the light glass in place, the light bulbs in, and we are just about ready for a test. There we go. Now, to get the light glass in, we'll need to make sure each of these screws on each of the 3, in this case 3, bulb locations are loose enough that the glass can fit in. And once you've got those loose enough, it's just a matter of putting the glass in place and tightening them evenly. We'll demonstrate with this one up here, and I'll get those wrapped up. As you can see, I'm just using my fingers, nothing crazy. These don't even have screwdriver heads, so you couldn't overdo it if you wanted to. Just going to wiggle it in there till it's evenly set. And then I'm going to begin tightening these finger screws just gently and evenly until they're all contacting the rubber gasket that they've put around here, right in that area. I'll get the rest of them set in. One more. Now we screw the bulbs in. And once these bulbs are in, we'll look it over once more. Take a look at our table of parts, make sure we haven't missed anything dramatic and important. And we'll give it a little test. These particular types of bulbs can be tricky to get in all the way, so be patient and not in a rush. You can break the glass rather easily on these types of bulbs. Okay. Now the only thing I haven't attached is the chain extensions. We'll get those on real quick while we're up here. Almost got it. Okay. It looks like we are ready for a test. Now that you've got the light is all assembled, the bulbs are in, you've done a look over and make sure everything's there, there's no big pieces left over, you're really ready to get the power back on and make a test run. We have the power back on, so let's flip the switch and see what we've got. Looks good. We'll let the fan warm up to speed. I'm going to click through this light real quick just to make sure it's okay. And once the fan is up to speed, you can double check its balance. And if the blades need to be balanced, fans come with a little balancing kit that have instructions with them on how to get those blades balanced. It looks good. Now go get your fan pulled down and get that new one put in place.